Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I wanted to deliver my final video on the Pathfinder Elemental Wander, which did result in being, I'd say, my favorite character for the Legacy League thus far, and I wanted to give you the rundown on how to build it, what I did to build it, all of the boss fights and hardest content in the game with it, since it was pretty much a cruise, or fairly breezy with the level of gear and damage that I had on this character. Now, you did already see a large amount of gameplay in the previous couple of videos, especially with the crypt map, but just wanted to show you a few more clips because this was a very enjoyable character to map with. I just wanted to keep mapping, and I got it to level 93 very comfortably, and I could even take it to higher levels, which I might do in the coming few weeks. As well as that, I did do a few Grandmaster map runs because they're pretty damn easy with this character. And the only real guys that stand in your way are the asshole Dynast tanks, as always. But you just have to basically get a Frost Bomb and a block reduction gem, and it should be pretty easy. The rest of the run is really easy and entirely farmable. So I did something like 4 or 5 runs, and only the block guys, the 2 block guys, stood in my way. I didn't resort to Frost Bomb or block reduction gem, and I still killed them a couple times, but it'll definitely make it a lot easier if you used those little tools to get through them, because it's pretty much RNG as to whether or not you kill them otherwise, since as soon as they block one attack, gonna go almost straight back up to full life. But it's largely because we're a Pathfinder that we can do this map fairly comfortably, because Pathfinders are very good for it. Likewise with the rest of the content. Chimera here was extremely easy as long as your flasks are up. So flask management is the biggest challenge of this fight, because you do want your flasks up for almost all of the time, even the adds, and you really have to pick your battles for what flask you press and when. Vinctars is the only one that really can't be fully sustained, but it's also your most important flask. So you have to decide when to use it and when not to use it, and sometimes it gets a little iffy. So I didn't have it up just then against him at the end, and that means I wasn't really leeching, and that means I almost died because I was face tanking him. But Chimera and Shaper are, I'd say, really the only 2 fights you have to worry about flask management, as well as that, I guess, Uber Atziri. But for, Shaper, it's pretty easy. You don't have to worry too much about flask management. You just go in, get your power charges up, and go fully deep with all of your flasks as soon as you can. And you can even face tank everything he throws at you with those flasks up. So it's a pretty straightforward fight when you get to my level of gear and damage, and it's just comfortable to farm him for several runs of loot. Likewise, Hydra, really easy. Actually, all of the Guardians, besides Chimera, should be pretty damn easy for the character. Even Chimera easy, but, a little bit of flask management going on. And worst case scenario, you run out of Vinctars like I did here. You just zone in and out and re-flask your Vinctars. Minotaur, for this one specifically, I was wearing an Eye of Chiula because you get more DPS that way. Likewise with Phoenix, you swap out your huge DPS amulet for an Eye of Chiula because not getting stunned is the biggest DPS upgrade we can pull off. And then we did do some fun little shenanigans on the Shaper. I wanted to see if I could survive one of the ball phases with the Vinctars VP Leech combo, and we just barely did. Took me 4 runs to get the right combo of survival to make it happen. And then lastly, I wanted to show you just a Chiula, which is pretty damn straightforward and pretty damn easy. I was very surprised with the damage too. So as always, I will try and wrap up the character as a guide as quickly as possible and cover everything I think I need to. Like I said, we hit level 93, could easily push for 94 because I was having a lot of fun, but people want to see the next character. We hit 90% accuracy, 92% with our Ice Golem, so accuracy is pretty good across the board with just a few little pieces here and here. So 92% accuracy, that's a pretty good number to be going for. And we do run an Ice Golem for crit and accuracy, of course. My resists are not fully capped, and I intentionally did that because I'm trying to get Vinctars and Dying Sun and my Bismuth to cover most of my resists, since my flasks are up roughly 100% of the time, and you really want to get your lightning up as high as possible for the Wise Oak to take effect, thus giving us 30% penetration from the flask. Because as you can see, with both the Penetration Vinctars and the Wise Oak up, I have currently 47 Lightning Pen on Barrage. All of it up, we get up to 92% Lightning Pen, which is absolutely huge. My multi is 494 on Barrage and 382 on Kinetic Blast, and the Barrage 6-link is Barrage, Increased Crit Multi, Ele Focus, Lightning Pen, Wed, and Lightning Damage. Crit Strikes, if you need to use it instead of Crit Multi for a lot of the time, but at this point in my gear, I definitely am most DPS centered with a crit damage support or a slower proj. That's also a strong alternative if that's what your path of building tells you to do. But Crit Strikes just fills out some of your crit if you're still kind of low. The Kinetic Blast only needs to be a 4-link, and that is Kinetic Blast, Pierce, GMP, and Wed. It only needs to be a 4-link, and it clears everything in the game extremely easily. That's why we focus our 6-link on the Barrage. And if you can get a 2 additional Barrage projectiles helm, that increases your DPS by something like 30%, so by all means try and get that, but it costs 10 exalts. Dying Sun, however, is very crucial for the build because as a Pathfinder, it turns your 2 projectiles into 3, and 3 additional projectiles on a base of 4 is a huge damage gain. You can see here it says 4, boom, 7. So huge damage gain for Barrage with your Dying Sun. Now, what we tried to do with the Wanda is become mostly lightning based, so we have a lightning wand with good crit and a bit of attack speed. As well as that, it's got a bit of fizz, which isn't irrelevant because we do have the some decent little fizz damage, and it gets converted or added with Tempest Blast to give you a bit more lightning damage too, but it's not all that crucial. We are mostly lightning based because there's some really good lightning nodes here, and grab a Static Electricity, and you focus on just the one because you can focus on the one with Wrath, Herald of Thunder, added lightning, as well as just lightning damage across the board. So we started to min-max our jewelry with some lightning damage and Wed on rings as much as possible, so 3 to 50, and then some Wed, as well as that some Wed, crit multi, and accuracy on an amulet, and some Wed over here. And that's about all for damage stats across the board on gear. Shield, just very defensive hubris. You don't even need the Wrath enchant at this point if you do gear the exact same way as me. And some accuracy and attack speed over here. And Brown Rottweilers, as always, mostly just for the stun avoided, but they're also pretty nice boots for damage. If you're really worried about stun, get an Ive Chiula. It's definitely not worth the headache just being stunned all the time, but most of the time it doesn't bother me. Just against certain bosses, I am 100% putting Ive Chiula on. I lose something like 20% damage, but doesn't really matter because it usually ends up as a net gain of damage because you don't get stunned. Now, some of the important things like gem setups. For our main reservation, we have an Enlightened level 3 attached to Wrath, so Wrath is always up, and then it's depending on the situation of what you need. So Wrath is up 100% of the time, and typically so is Herald of Thunder. At that point, you can either get Discipline in, and that's usually just our tanky setup and for boss kills and hard maps and all that, but a lot of the time we get rid of Discipline and attach Herald of Ice because it shatters things and also helps with power charge generation through our Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice, Assassin's Mark, and Curse on Hit setup. Now, I don't have to do that very often, and it's really just there for a bit of extra clear speed and a bit of extra reliable generation. Otherwise, just Discipline most of the time. You can hit 10k ES with decent gear, 20% extra ES on my rings right now, and Amulet would put me up to about 11,000 ES, but I did not really think I needed that, so I didn't go for it. Then we have our Orb of Storm setup, which is Orb of Storms attached to power charge on crit and crit strikes. Really only ever use that for certain boss fights. You just drop an Orb of Storms near a thing and hopefully it gives you some power charges. But we actually rarely even do that. Most of the time your power charges are going to be sustained through Herald of Thunder with Assassin's Mark, but otherwise you have a Jaws of Agony in your offhand and you just throw some traps before you start a fight and then try and sustain with Orb of Storms, but usually a fight's over before that, and if you have time you just weapon swap again and throw a few more traps and it's easy power charge sustain. All I'm trying to say here is Skyforth's highly overrated. Fuck that 40 exalts you're going to pay for those. And then that about sums up the character's gear and gems, and it's fairly straightforward from there on out. As far as the passive tree is concerned, we do move over for point blank for barrage, so you know all of your damage has to come from being up close to a target. Make sure you stand near them for your damage. Vial Pact, very essential. Static electricity here isn't a no-brainer. It's pretty competitive with just a good dual like damage, lightning damage, attack speed, but it's an easy dual to get here without having to buy any others. We do have some mana reservation over here and over here to fit all of our auras in a bit more comfortably, and there's not too much else to mention. These nodes over here for wand attack speed and accuracy are better than these, so these are the last things you fill out and not that essential at all. Likewise with this, just 15% damage per node is good, but it's less DPS than most of the alternatives. And lastly, I'll go over what you get here. I'd say for the first 2 points, you'd grab Veteran Bowyer, next 2 points here, last 2 points, next 2 points here, and then last 2 points here. And for leveling, it should be fairly straightforward. Just go through here, probably grab that, then start going up here, here, and then hit the wand nodes ASAP. With leveling up until level 28, I was using Spectral Throw with all kinds of, you know, different weapons and gear and all that. By level 28, you get Kinetic Blast. You can use some Storm Prison wands, and you can just, you know, Kinetic Blast and barrage your way to victory. It is pretty easy from there on out. It's not an easy character to level with absolutely zero gear and fresh league starter. Unless you have a friend who is a aura support, I really wouldn't recommend it. I'd say that's all there is for the Elemental Wander for now. It may be a much harder build to make in the future given the ES nerfs coming, but it was certainly, I'd say, one of the funnest characters, if not the funnest character I played in Legacy, and that is largely just because it's extremely strong. You are very range based, you obliterate entire screens of enemies at safety, and flasks are extremely good and just really comfortable and nice to use as a Pathfinder, so you can't go wrong. It's extremely fun to play and rather overpowered. That's it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video and the build. Thank you for watching and see you next time.